Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so you friends see it. Thank you.
Durbin blasts Trump for desperate and reckless conduct. President Donald Trump is engaged in desperate and reckless conduct against the law enforcement entities investigating his 2016 campaign, Senate Minority Whip Dick Durbin said Sunday morning, actions that should push Congress to take steps to protect the office of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Trump lashed out earlier Sunday against Mueller, accusing the lifelong Republican of filling his office with Democrats pursuing a partisan agenda under the guise of an investigation into allegations that the president's campaign colluded with Russian efforts to interfere in the 2016 election. The president's attacks have once again stirred speculation that he might try to fire Mueller and end his investigation, which Trump has long labeled a witch hunt. If the president reaches out and stops this investigation, that is a constitutional crisis in this country. That's been said by Democrats and Republicans alike, Durbin, DO, told Fox News Sunday. What it means is, it would be incumbent on Congress on a bipartisan basis to use the tools at its disposal. Further fueling talk that Trump might move against Mueller were Saturday remarks from John Dowd, a member of the president's outside legal team. In an email to the Daily Beast, Dowd praised Attorney General Jeff Sessions' decision to fire Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe and said, "I pray that Acting Attorney General Rosenstein will follow the brilliant and courageous example of the FBI Office of Professional Responsibility and Attorney General Jeff Sessions and bring an end to alleged Russia collusion investigation manufactured by McCabe's boss James Comey based upon a fraudulent and corrupt dossier." Rosenstein, who appointed Mueller and oversees his investigation because Sessions has recused himself from investigations related to the 2016 campaign, said last week that he does not believe there is any justification at this point for terminating the special counsel. Still, Durbin, who sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee, said Sunday that Congress should take steps to protect Mueller. You think about the obvious. There are two bills before the Senate Judiciary Committee, which has been absent without leave on this issue, two bills before the committee, bipartisan bills to protect the special counsel. We ought to pass those bills now, Durbin said. This president is engaged in desperate and reckless conduct to intimidate the law enforcement agencies of this country and to try to stop the special counsel. That is unacceptable in a democracy. White House attorney Trump not considering firing Mueller. President Donald Trump is not considering firing special counsel Robert Mueller, White House attorney Ty Cobb said Sunday evening, attempting to assuage concerns that Trump's attacks of Mueller mean a showdown is imminent. In response to media speculation and related questions being posed to the administration, the White House yet again confirms that the president is not considering or discussing the firing of the special counsel, Robert Mueller, Cobb said in a statement to the White House press pool. Trump's decision to personally attack Mueller, a move he avoided in the past, caused renewed focus on the status of Mueller's job. Cobb's statement comes as many fellow Republicans spent Sunday warning the president not to go after Mueller and certainly not to fire him. Special Counsel Mueller has served our country with honesty and integrity. It's critical he be allowed to complete a thorough investigation into Russia's interference in the 2016 election, unimpeded, Senator John McCain, Republican Arizona, wrote on Twitter. South Carolina Representative Trey Gowdy told the president that if he is innocent, he should act like it. If you've done nothing wrong, you should want the investigation to be as fulsome and thorough as possible, Gowdy said on Fox News Sunday. Trump likely to quit Iran deal, Corker says. Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Bob Corker said Sunday that he believes President Donald Trump is likely to pull the U.S. out of the Iran nuclear deal in May, a step that would undo one of the major foreign policy achievements claimed by former President Barack Obama. Corker, Republican Tennessee, told CBS's Face the Nation that such a move by Trump could be avoided if the president's concerns, which deal largely with Iran's actions outside the specifics of the nuclear deal, are addressed as part of a multilateral framework. Such an agreement seems unlikely, Corker said. The Iran deal will be another issue that's coming up in May, and right now it doesn't feel like it's going to be extended. I think the president likely will move away from it, unless our European counterparts really come together on a framework. And it doesn't feel to me that they are, Corker said, cautioning that circumstances could change as the May 12 deadline for a decision on the Iran deal approaches. You think the president's going to pull out of that Iran deal on May 12? CBS anchor Margaret Brennan followed up, to which Corker replied, I do. I do. Trump, who last week fired Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, his top diplomat, has long railed against the Iran nuclear deal, dating back to the 2016 presidential campaign, when he made pledges to withdraw the U.S. from it, a major part of his foreign policy platform. The president has remained publicly skeptical of the deal since taking office, but thus far stopped short of making good on his promise to pull out of it. Accusing Iran of bad behavior that includes funding groups labeled by the U.S. as terrorist organizations, Trump announced last October that he would decertify Iran's compliance with the deal, asking Congress to pass legislation that could trigger penalties for the Islamic Republic. More recently, Trump extended the nuclear deal last January, waiving economic sanctions on Iran but declaring that he would not do so again when the next deadline hits in May unless Congress and U.S. allies in Europe dramatically strengthen the nuclear agreement. This is a last chance, Trump said in January. Either fix the deal's disastrous flaws, or the United States will withdraw. Hundreds of millions in state opioid cash left unspent. Congress sent states hundreds of millions of dollars to fight an opioid crisis, claiming more than 100 lives a day, money they've largely been unable to spend after a year. Mixed signals from the Trump administration on how to use the money and state challenges ramping up their efforts have left untouched more than 3/4 of the $500 million Congress set aside under the 21st Century Cures Act in late 2016. As President Donald Trump heads to hard-hit New Hampshire today to tout his plan to combat the crisis, the slow drip of dollars into communities hit hard by addiction has put state officials in a bind and frustrated addiction experts and some treatment organizations. This is a total failure, said Andrew Kolodny, former chief medical officer at Phoenix House and now a Brandeis University researcher, likening the situation to food and water stuck in an airport somewhere, while people are starving to death. The grants for opioid addiction and prevention efforts were part of a $1 billion commitment over 2 years authorized in the Cures Act, which then President Barack Obama signed just before leaving office. But state officials were quickly caught in a dilemma. They were happy to receive new money, but it was guaranteed for only 2 years, making it difficult to get long-term commitments from healthcare providers and others to build programs and hire a workforce. Many of those trying to expand access to medication-assisted treatment, buy overdose reversal drugs and bolster recovery programs say they were hamstrung in their efforts to solve a magnifying public health emergency with a short-term program. They're calling on Congress for a longer-term financial commitment. One-time money really changes the parameters of what you think you can fund, said Katie Marks, project director for the Kentucky Opioid Response Effort, where officials will receive $21 million in grants over 2 years. Some of these programs are going to take a fair amount of development before they can sustain themselves. Congress is set to release the second $500 million tranche of aid soon, and weighing whether to extend the grants beyond 2 years while making other changes, according to aides in both parties. The funding is valuable to boost certain types of programs, but doesn't come close to paying for aggressive treatment for those suffering from addiction, said Robin Parsons of the Fairbanks Alcohol and Drug Addiction Treatment Center in Indianapolis. This isn't going to go away in a couple of years, Parsons, the hospital's chief clinical officer, said of the epidemic. Regina LaBelle, who served as chief of staff at the Office of National Drug Control Policy during the Obama administration, likens the state's challenge to flying a plane while you're building it. They have to build infrastructure at the same time they have to get money out the door. Many projects are just getting off the ground, even though the first year of the program ends April 30th, with officials expecting to request the money be carried over into the new year. Kentucky officials have spent nearly $2 million as of early this month, Marks said. They began finalizing contracts for roughly 30 projects in July, she said. It has been a challenge with that many contracts, and using a state procurement process and partnering with community agencies, said Alan Brinsell, clinical director for the Kentucky Department for Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities. Other states found workarounds to spend it faster. California legislators gave their health department new authority to quickly roll out contracts using the nearly $45 million the state will get annually, most of it to increase the use of medication-assisted treatment. The programs were up and running by last fall. Progress has been slower elsewhere. In New Hampshire, which had the nation's third highest drug overdose fatality rate in 2016, a 5-member council must approve state contracts exceeding $25,000. The first 2 grants weren't approved until late January. We don't want to spend 18 months building programs that sunset when the funding ends, said Julia Frew, who oversees a Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center effort that got $2.8 million to expand medication-assisted treatment for pregnant women. We're trying to think of sustainability as we go. In Indiana, which received about $11 million the first year, concerns about future funding led Aspire Indiana to not move ahead with a proposed expansion of residential substance abuse services, according to Matt Brooks, president of the Indiana Council of Community Mental Health Centers. There is no guarantee that SAMHSA grant funding will continue in the future, said Brooks. Federal officials say such spending delays are normal for new programs. The first 4 months of the state opioids grants were dedicated to setting up infrastructure, followed by a half-year focused on delivering services, SAMHSA spokesperson Chris Garrett said. He said that states have spent just under a quarter of the $500 million Congress appropriated so far. But the startup experience has underscored the need for greater clarity from the federal government. Last year, ex-HHS Secretary Tom Price sent mixed signals about how much funding states would receive in Round 2 and what it might be spent on. That rattled state officials, who worried that changes halfway through would require them to reapply and potentially delay projects. Congress and SAMHSA also went back and forth about whether to change the funding formula. It is based on a combination of population and total drug deaths, which left small states like West Virginia and New Hampshire with proportionately less money than big states that had lower mortality rates. We had to kind of wait for the green light that the second-year funding would be allocated to the same priorities, said Kentucky's Brinsell. State officials are now awaiting the second round of funding and hoping for more after that. My number one ask would be for them to continue the program as is, said Marlise Perez, chief of the California Department of Health Care Services Substance Use Disorder Compliance Division. For them to come up with a whole new system? That would definitely add delays. Some in Congress are nonetheless examining possible tweaks. Senator Tammy Baldwin, Democrat Wisconsin, and others have proposed broadening the funding targets to address additional substance use issues like methamphetamine, which has plagued her state. Other lawmakers, from states with the highest drug-related death rates, are pushing for more money, faster. How do we deal with small communities that don't have 2 nickels to rub up against each other to file a grant application? Said GOP Representative David McKinley, whose home state of West Virginia has the highest overdose mortality rate in the country. How can we streamline this so that it does get out? Don Sapatkin contributed to this story.